For anyone who appreciates the rich history of bodybuilding, we had the chance to see the evolution of bodybuilding, a film you made about a year ago, and it really did a great job of telling the story and using the Olympia as sort of the centerpiece for telling the chronology and the story of our sport, dating back to 1965, the first Olympia, all the way to present day. And you guys did a great job, and now we have a new project, and it is the Arnold Classic 25th anniversary documentary. And first of all, congratulations.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about this project. First of all, I got a great partner with Patrick Rivera from Trick Entertainments. I mean, what he does with the camera and the editing bay is nothing short of amazing. So I got to give him mad props. He picked the right guy in me, being that I navigate the industry well and I've been there to tell the story. And I got a great guy in him in order to put this thing together. And in interviewing all of these Arnold Classic champions, again, I'm like a kid in a candy store all over again. I'm getting stories and behind-the-scenes stories from guys I didn't have any relationship with, only saw them in the magazines, and it's great to be on this side of the camera.
And to tell the story, though, of the Arnold Classic, it's more than just about the contest, isn't it? It's about Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Lorimer, their handshake agreement. Jim Lorimer loves telling the story about how he and Arnold shook hands, and to this day, that represents the only thing that binds them together. There's no legal instrument, there's no contractual commitment between the two of them. It's two friends who have sort of gone through this journey, and on some level, the Arnold Classic is as much about the contest as it is about Arnold Schwarzenegger remaining bodybuilding's greatest ambassador.
Well, and that speaks to the characters involved here. I mean, you are talking about one of the greatest bodybuilders in the history in Arnold, and one of the best promoters and businessmen and business minds, I should say. I mean, Jim Lorimer is much more than just a contest promoter for anybody that knows his history. And so when you put those two heads together, to bring an event like this, it's no wonder that they're starting to go global. I mean, they've moved into Spain, they're going into Brazil, and of course, everyone lives for the Arnold Classic weekend. It's going on its 25th year, and I've never missed a year.
And the first of those years was 1989, and you weren't on stage. It was the very first Arnold Classic. Rich Gasperi, of course, wins the contest. But if I remember correctly, you were supposed to be on that stage, weren't you?
Yeah, I had signed the contract to compete, and I was blown away that Arnold Schwarzenegger actually called my house to personally invite me to compete in the show. I was coming off a 13th place at the Olympia, training with Mike Christian, the 1984 national champion. I pinched a nerve in my neck doing some heavy leg presses, and I was required to not train. I was about 5 weeks out from the show. So while I was disappointed that I couldn't compete medically, I got suspended. I was forced with either a $5,000 fine or a suspension for not competing in the competition. And I sat out that year in the 5th row, and while I watched that contest, I said, never again will I prepare for a contest that I'm not fully prepared to compete in. So I set my sights on the 1990 Arnold Classic.
And you showed up in 1990 in incredible shape. You win the contest, but not so fast. You, along with 3 other guys, disqualified. And to this day, that remains one of the more controversial, more talked about bodybuilding contests.
Well, yeah, and rightfully so. It's the first ever in the history of professional bodybuilding drug-tested competition. I was coming off of pretty much being conceived as the golden boy, next in line, the heir to the throne, so to speak. And I was coming off a first-place win at the Ironman Championships 1 week prior. So going into that competition, the drug test was the last thing on my mind that I was going to be concerned with. I mean, all of us got the notification at approximately the same time that this would be a drug-tested show, and therefore we all stopped whatever it was we were doing. No one had the technology to know how to beat a drug test, that they didn't even know what type of drug test it was going to be. That being said, I tested positive. I couldn't really fight it. I couldn't contradict it. It was what it was. Made one phone call to Joe Weider from Canada on tour, and asked him, what do I do now? And he said, well, we're going to have another drug test at the Mr. Olympia in September. Prove him wrong. And I came back and I got 3rd place in that Mr. Olympia contest.
And then in 91, you show up in Columbus at the Arnold Classic, and of course, you finally land in the winner's circle, and you were allowed to stay in the winner's circle this time. And I'd have to assume, of course, you had an illustrious career, a Hall of Fame career, top 5 at the Olympia 12 years in a row. But I'm just going to guess that looking back on that glorious career, that win in 1991, after everything you had gone through from 89 to 90 and then into 91, has to stand out above all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a redemption type of a victory for me, because I had a lot to prove, not only to myself, but I was kind of like the Ben Johnson of bodybuilding, and I didn't like that moniker. I was too young to realize what had happened. I mean, by the time, remember, this is before the internet, before Twitter, before Facebook. News traveled at a snail's pace, so that this contest took place in March. most people got wind of it by around May. The fans, it hit the newsstands in about May. And I was already training for the Olympia in September. So by the time people were able to process this, I was getting third place in the Mr. Olympia and was already set in motion for the 91 Arnold Classic, where I got my redemption. I guess the saving grace in all of that was that Arnold Schwarzenegger and Joe Weider both pretty much had my back, because they saw what I did moving from 13th to 3rd at the Mr. Olympia, and then coming back in 91, winning with perfect scores. To say having dinner with Arnold Schwarzenegger before he was the governor, with Maria Shriver, and with my father in tow, and the $70,000 check was the highlight of my career. Nothing, I can't really compare anything except the birth of my children to how satisfied I was with putting it all on the line and redeeming myself in 91.
And that's why this documentary needs to be made, because you're talking about 25 years worth of extraordinary storytelling, and I'm sure you're excited to finish things up. I know the project has been an ongoing one over the past year, and this spring, when we get to Columbus, this film is going to be released.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is that Patrick Rivera from Trick Entertainments he's a historian fan. So when you have a historian fan and then you have a bodybuilder that was part of history, I mean, I caught the tail end of the Lee Haney era, all of Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman, and the beginning of Jay Cutler. There's a great synergy there where we get the story from the athlete, and so it's going to be condensed because there's a lot of champions in there, and we're covering a large span, 25 years. And it wasn't, at the beginning it was just bodybuilding, but it grew to this powerlifting, fitness, bikini, physique, and all these other extraneous activities, marathons, cheerleading, again, globalization of the Arnold, that we're trying to capture how it's grown, the prize money grew, the personalities that were born out of it. I mean, Kai Green, no one heard of Kai Green, and now Kai Green's worldwide, a two-time Arnold Classic champion. Kevin Levrone in the Hall of Fame, Flex Wheeler, 4-time champion. So we're capturing what they felt. We've got Kai Green and Adela Garcia, who's won the Fitness International, and some of these guys crying. I mean, Flex Wheeler was moved to tears telling the story as he reflected back on some of his championship wins. So these bodybuilders are very emotionally attached to their victories when they won it, and it was just a great opportunity to be able to put the mic in their face and get the stories from them.
Shawn Ray, a Hall of Fame bodybuilder, and now a documentary filmmaker. The film is Arnold Classic, 25 years, and we'll look forward to seeing it when it's released at the 2013 Arnold Sports Festival. For Shawn Ray, I'm Dan Solomon, musculardevelopment.com.